3, 2.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and to our constituents in District 5. This is the District 5 open house meeting. And as you know, I have quarterly meetings on a regular basis in the district. And this is our second quarterly meeting this year. And I'm happy to welcome you this afternoon. And you can see the agenda on the screen. This afternoon, we have our Northwest Area Commander, who's also representing the Chief, Harold Medina. But we have our Northwest Area Commander is Arturo Sanchez. We have Pete Gelibert, our Crime Prevention Specialist. We have Chad Kim, who is with Albuquerque Fire and Rescue. Nicholas Zubal, OEM Senior Planner for CABQ Emergency Management. We will have reports from our transportation engineers, Deputy Director Melissa Lazoya and Tim Brown. And then, of course, the lady who makes it all happen for me, Susan B. Hill, my policy analyst. Before this meeting, we asked that residents send in their comments or their questions, and Susan has compiled some responses to those questions. And at the end of this meeting, we will be addressing those, and Susan will take that on since she worked so hard to ensure that that we were able to respond. And we will also respond directly to those constituents that asked and took the time to ask about different issues in District 5. So I just want to welcome you on this kind of semi-windy afternoon in District 5. And we have a lot of things we want to discuss, a lot of projects that we're working on. And we don't have a lot of time, but because we have a full agenda, but we just want to start trying to address some of your issues, your concerns. As you noticed on the agenda, we have our Northwest Area Commander, and we are listening to you. We are hearing the issues related to crime. I'm proud to say that in District 5, we have some of the lowest crime. We do have property crime, which is a regular occurrence, and I think our Northwest Area Commander will address some of that property crime that we've dealt with. And we have some neighborhoods and some pockets that, you know, experience a little more crime, higher crime on a regular basis. But I think that District 5 is a model for how community policing can work. And I'm proud to listen. And I want to say that in the budget I was able to add some funding for particularly issues that are concerning to me, crimes against children, and some other areas of crime. Unfortunately, we weren't able to address the issues of improved vehicles or more vehicles for the police, but I welcome that and that discussion in the future for our upcoming budgets next year. But we were able to increase our numbers for addressing the issues of getting more police officers on the street. And we also were able to add funding for mental health programs and issues that are related to homelessness. So these are all really important issues to all of us, and not just in District 5, but for the entire city. We ended up with a balanced budget, which I'm very proud that the mayor signed our budget and his budget combined as we made some amendments to that. I would also like to mention to our constituents, as we talk about our infrastructure projects, we did receive a bit of funding, and I'm happy to say, and if you look on our website and you contact our office, we can give you an account of how much funding we did receive. We did receive some funding for the multi-generational center at Cibola Loop. We also proud to say that we received infrastructure funding for Paseo del Norte, and we are working on funding for Unser Boulevard. At this point in time, if assuming the bond goes through in November, Paseo del Norte will have $20 million for a $26 million project. That is the city's portion of that project. Unser Boulevard will have $13 million from the federal government for a $26 million project, which is the city's portion. I'd also like to say that we kicked off West Side Boulevard, and I'm really proud of that. That's a $10 million project that's in progress as we speak. We completed Paradise Boulevard, which is, as you drive down it, it looks really nice. And we are putting in that additional stoplight that we talked about right at, I think it's, I can't pronounce that name. I think it's Segundo. Is that right, Susan? How you say that?
Seguro.
Yeah, Segundo Street. Yeah.
Actually, Saguaro.
Saguaro. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to practice that one. But these are really important. The other things, we are going to be announcing some completions of some improvements in some of our parks, and you'll see that coming in July. In one in particular I think about is we just put a new slide at the pool on Montano and Golf Course, just west of that intersection. There's a little community center in there that the kids are, I'm really happy to say that we're also out of the COVID and kids are being able to utilize some of these things. We also finished the improvements for children's recreation at Piedras Marcadas Park, so I'm proud of that. And I think my 5 minutes is almost up. So I am going to, with that, I'm going to move to our Northwest Area Commander, which thank you, Commander. And I know you're representing our chief today. But I really want to stay focused on crime because that is such a huge issue for so many people in our city. And, you know, we want to work with the police department, community policing, to address the crime issues and to bring those numbers down. So, Commander Sanchez, thank you for being with us. And we will go to you now.
Thank you, Counselor. I do appreciate you having us here. And you're right, crime has been a big issue and a concern for the community. I do want to thank you, first of all, for being supportive of us. I know that you have always reached out to us to see if there's anything that you can do to help us, whether it's resources or even providing us some of the concerns that you get, because it does help us address some of those things. I will say that the Northwest Area Command, compared to a lot of the other area commands, we are very fortunate. We do have very low numbers. So I'm going to give you some numbers. And a lot of times when I give you percentages, they seem very, very high. But we got to keep in mind, because our numbers are so low, just one incident of a particular crime or one could be a very big increase. So you know, we're fortunate in that sense, but we're still unfortunate that when we see something happen, it just seems like our numbers are really high when an incident happens. However, we yesterday, and I don't know if some of you had the opportunity to attend the town hall yesterday evening, and one of the things that I mentioned is that overall, compared with 2019, 2020, and 2021, we have pretty much been lowering month to month our crime rates in pretty much all the almost all the categories. We have seen off and on in some months with the ag assaults that have we have seen that kind of increase a little bit. But just to put it in perspective, especially in 2020, the first 4 months up to April, in our type 1, what we consider our type 1 crimes, which are the burglaries, robberies, auto thefts, and things like that, sexual assaults. Those first 4 months, we were hitting over 200 in every one of those overall. I mean, I'm sorry, I mean each one. Overall, we were hitting over 200. Right now, this year in January, we were over the 200 mark, but that has been the only month. Since then, we have been under 200 when you combine all those crimes every month. So that's a good thing for us, because it is showing that we're at least decreasing some of those numbers. Now, one of the areas that we did take a pretty good hit on recently was with homicides. Unfortunately, we have had 2 more homicides this year than we did all of last year. So that puts, when you're looking at percentages, it makes it seem like, it is, because it shows about a 200% increase because we have so few. However, overall, like I said, the crime rates here in the Northwest are coming down. We have cut some areas in crime by 23% in some of those areas of crime. So we are doing good. And it has to do with the support that we get from the community, the support that we get from you, the support that we, that we get for our neighborhood associations, which are very active. As you know, this morning, like you said, we had our coffee with the cop, the first one that we've had since the pandemic and before. I mean, it's been probably about 1.5 years since we've had one here in the area command, and really, I think in the city. That showed the support that we had for the community, and not just that, it showed the concerns that they have, because along with the community showing up to a coffee with the cop, it also is those concerns that are coming with the community. So again, that is where we are with regards to crime. I would definitely be able to answer any questions. I know that there were other questions that they wanted us to bring with regards to our staffing. We are doing everything. The department, the chief, the mayor's office is doing everything to get those numbers up with our officers. Right now, we're at about 967 officers, sworn officers for the department. I can tell you that they put the numbers out for the bid for the Northwest Area Command. We're gonna have less officers this bid than we did last bid. It's unfortunate, but that's just because of the resources. So and how the officers are going to be distributed. I think every area command is going to be short with those officers.
Commander, can you just address really briefly for the public what it takes to become an officer, how long it takes to go through the training, and then how long it takes to actually have an officer on the street?
Yes, absolutely. It's at least a year before an officer gets through all their training. Right now, the academy, I believe, is 29 weeks. Not only do they have to go through the academy, they also have to go through the on-the-job training. And that is about another 4 months. So some officers may have to go a little bit longer, but because there is so much training, because, one of the things is that quantity is one thing. We can fill up academies with cadets, but that's not what we want. And I don't think that's what the community wants. It's about quality. It's about making sure that we get the right officers and hire the right people with the right attitude and who understand what the community really wants. And that's why it does take such a long time, because there is so much training. And through that training, not everybody's going to make it. I mean, not everybody gets through the academy. We may start with 50 people for one academy, and we may end up with 40. And that's okay, because we would much rather end up with 40, then have an extra 10 that were just not going to be fit for this profession.
Can you also just very briefly address the issue of retention? Because that's an area that, I mean, we get people trained and we get them into the academy and then they become officers, but there's officers that are at the other end of the spectrum that are leaving. So could you just address that issue?
Absolutely. One of the things that we look at, and I know the department in the city looks at when they're doing the hiring and they're doing positions and they're looking at funding, they take those officers that they expect to be retiring within a certain time within that year. And so we do have to take that into account. I don't have the numbers of the retirements right now, but I know that there have been quite a few retirements. And there have been officers that we do get officers that, after their first year, 2 years, they end up going to another department. We do have that happen a lot. And the department and the city do take that into account. I think it's, at least from what I see within my area command and from what I see, that I see and that my lieutenants see is that there's just not as much interest in law enforcement as before. So that's another hurdle. But I know that the recruiting unit has done a really good job by going out, not only going outside of the state, but really looking at trying to reach out to different areas of our community, because at the end of the day, it's important for us to make sure that we have a department that it represents our community, and that's really what we're looking at. I know recruiting has really been pushing on that. The department has been pushing on that, and so I think eventually we're gonna get to those numbers. It's just gonna take a little bit of time.
Thank you so much, Commander. We appreciate the work you do and the officers. I was at Coffee with a Cop this morning, thanks to Pete, who and Commander called me at like 7 o'clock. So are you going to be there? And I was really happy to see that there were so many people there from the community. And I think that's what really community policing is really all about, is that support and, being able to talk to an officer sort of one-on-one. I mean, that, and tell them about, because I heard some issues this morning for one of our communities, and I'm not going to mention any names, but where there had been some drive-by shootings. And, being able to hear that and understand that and have some officers there to sort of address that, that is really what community policing, in my mind, is really all about. So it was really good to be there this morning, and thank you. And I want to give a shout out to Starbucks for sponsoring that over on I think it's 528 in Alameda. We look for our local businesses to help us as well.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I want to mention is that they've actually started they're a good partner. Last week we met with some of the Starbucks managers. They actually had one of their security, the head of their security, come in from Colorado for this specific meeting last week, because it was important, because it's not just about a business. We didn't say it is absolutely that we want to make sure that they are not, that they are not being victimized, but it's more than that, because we have to remember that it's our citizens, it's our members in the community that are going to these businesses, and they end up being victimized. Also, they can either be victimized directly, or they get victimized when the prices of our goods go up because of all these thefts, because of all these crimes that are going. And a lot of times we don't think that way, but when you look at something that happens at any business, whether it's a Lowe's, whether it's one of our local business, or a big chain, we don't look at the fact that when somebody commits that crime and goes in and does and steals something from that business, they're not just victimizing the business, they're victimizing all of us, because eventually we're going to have to pay for those losses.
And can you just, for the public's sake, because not everybody, knows how to report a crime, could you just really briefly talk about what the best way to report a crime, if you see something? And I know, Pete, you're the one who probably coined the phrase, if you see something, say something. But can you just explain what is the best way to report a crime?
Absolutely. There's several ways. One, obviously, any type of emergency, any crime that is in progress, especially any crime against person, you have to call 911. For crimes, let's say delayed auto burglaries, or let's say it's something that's not in an emergency at that time, 242 cops. And then we have another reporting system, which is online. We can take reports, for example, a burglary where there's nothing that's going to be processed, or we can actually take those. We are looking at a lot of other things in order to best use our resources. Obviously, we're looking at what else can we do to provide something to the community where they don't have to wait an hour or 2 or 3 for an officer to show up just to take a report. We have the online reporting. We can come to a substation. So those are all the ways. The one thing that I would ask is that a lot of times, a lot of us do look at some of these platforms and social platforms like Nextdoor and things like that. And in fact, I do. One of the things that I look at to see what some of the concerns people are having. However, that is not a way to reach us. We don't monitor that, but we do read it, and that's important for us when you talk about community engagement. I mentioned this the other day, is that it also shows, I mentioned it to the monitors, that it also shows how the community is seeing law enforcement without us being there, in a sense. And I take this example where a citizen was posting on there that her father had gone missing. He had some medical problems, and officers were able to find him and get him the help that he needed, EMT. And in those comments that I was reading, they were talking, somebody in there had mentioned about, if you are going to show that support, to go to the coffee with the cop. And it was just somebody that had heard about it. And that's kind of, that shows the involvement that the community has. But again, going back to those reporting, we just want to make sure that you use the right reporting system, that you're not, that you do call us. Even if it's something really small, let us know. My email is on the website. The lieutenant's email is on the website. If you need to just call us, send us an email to discuss something that you may not think is anything that we need to respond at the time, but we can help you address, please contact us.
Thank you so much. So what if I was reporting a crime, where would I go? www.
I'll put it up here. I'll put all the
on
information
the chat.
on the
Okay,
chat.
that would be great. Thank
That
you
way
so much.
everybody can have it.
Thank you so much, Commander. We know you're busy, and so we're going to move on to Pete Gelibert. And Pete, thank you. You've been with APD, and soon we will be having these meetings in person, and I look forward to that. But Pete is our crime prevention specialist. So Pete, we're going to give you a few minutes to say a few words.
Thank you, Councilor Borrego. We were talking about coffee with a cop. I've already had business requests from other Starbucks within our area command, Chick-fil-A, Donut Mart. So we'll be having other donut or coffee with a cop meet the community. On the crime prevention side, like you had mentioned, Councilor Borrego, we are having in-person annual meetings as we speak. A week and a half ago, Laurelwood Neighborhood Association, they had an in-person, and they actually had it at one of their local parks. And just last week, Commander and myself attended the Stonebridge HOA meeting. So now with the relaxation of the COVID, I know we're getting a lot of in-person meetings, either at parks or, even at different, let's say, community, Taylor Ranch Community Center, things like that. So we're seeing that. I'm even getting more and more calls when it comes to the Neighborhood Watch program. So now that everybody's out and about, they want to start Neighborhood Watch. They want to help us so that they can be alert for any suspicious activity. But we tell them, and one thing they really like is the incentive of once you start a Neighborhood Watch, is once you become a block captain, is having that personal officer assigned to them with their city phone number. So then they have options of either calling the 242 cops, 911, they can call me on crime prevention, but they also have that officer's phone number for any concerns. So that's a lot of good information when it comes to Neighborhood Watch that the community is looking for. And I've had a lot of requests. People want to be block captains to get that personal relationship with that officer one-on-one. So we're glad that we're back to eventually normal. And also our National Night Out. I will start sending flyers as we get closer, but this year we will have our National Night Out in August. So I'll have flyers so that people show the website also that they can go and sign up. And what will happen is the people that are interested in hosting the National Night Out, we will see those locations, and the commander will assign himself, lieutenant, sergeants, and myself for the National Night Out. One thing about National Night Out, there's a lot of good food at these locations.
So I see that the commander posted the link in the chat for people if they want to know how to report a crime. And we certainly look forward to the National Night Out, Pete. Those are great opportunities for people to get to know their officers. And, as I mentioned before, as we talk about community policing, this is the opportunity to know your officers, to talk with them on one-on-one, sometimes to talk about issues that, aren't comfortable to us, or we know something's going on in the neighborhood and it's troubling, or we think it could be troubling. This is the opportunity. And Pete Gelibert, if you can also post your information in the chat so that people know how to reach you as well, because Pete helps people organize. He works very closely with Office of Neighborhood Coordination and with the police department, and he's a former police officer, so he certainly knows his way around. But and I heard of one area today with Coffee with a Cop that does not have a neighborhood association. And, I offered to them, and Pete, you and I could talk about that a little bit later, but, they may want to. We've tried to organize that area once before, but it was hard. It's hard because it's always the same people that step up to the plate to do the work in their neighborhoods. But, it's really important to get that information. And I see that Julian has posted that information on the screen. So Pete, do you want to wrap up and say anything else?
Yes, for anyone that's interested in starting up Neighborhood Watch, becoming block captains, I will put my direct phone number, my email. Please get a hold of me. Let's work together. And Councilor Borrego, you mentioned it, that, it's a community effort, the community and the police. And we see that. And we're real fortunate in the Northwest. Since I've been there for 12 years, we have an excellent community in the Northwest that works very, very well with the police department. And I'd like to thank you, Councilor Borrego, and also Susan for helping us and being there for us. Thank you.
And I just want to mention also to the public, if you can't, for some reason, or you're reluctant to contact the police, you can always contact my office, myself, or my policy analyst, Susan B. Hill, and we'll put those numbers in the chat as well, just to make sure people have access, because, sometimes people feel like they don't have access to the city. They don't know who to talk to. And we certainly don't want people to feel like they're victims in their own community. And that's really what community policing is all about. And so with that, I'm going to move on to our Chief Chad Kim from the Albuquerque Fire and Rescue. And I just want to thank our police officers. You know, you guys, you know, all of public safety and the work that you do is not something that I could do, that's for sure. But, you know, I think the community I mean, you know that you have the support of my office, but you also have the support of the community. And so with that, I'm going to move on to our Albuquerque Fire Rescue Deputy Chief Chad Kim.
Thank you, Council President Borrego. My exact title is Battalion Chief. Deputy Chief, ma'am, is just one above me, so I wanted to be very clear that I am.
Oh, did I give you a promotion?
Yes, and that's okay. I won't expect anything financially.
You can just tell Chief Gallegos that
Yes,
I gave you a promotion tonight.
And that kind of, ma'am, actually opens the door into the very first topic that I wanted to bring up, and that is that we had our fire chief retire just about a month ago. And I wanted to really explain to everybody out there that we are not at all concerned, and nor should you be, that there's going to be any sort of gap in services because of that. I think that when every few years we have a leader that chooses to move on, and this is a well-oiled machine at the Albuquerque Fire Rescue. So it's like business as usual. You would never be able to tell when most of us leave because everybody is so well trained. So I want to really emphasize that I don't want the public to at all believe that anything is any different now than it was a month ago, other than people just changing names.
And I just want to give a shout out to Chief Paul Dow,
Yes,
who
ma'am.
did retire.
Yes, ma'am.
And just because, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have
No.
to say this. Before he left in this last legislative session, we worked together to get funding to design a new fire station in District 5, and I'm really proud of that. So I'm sorry, Mr. Kim, but I just had to give him a shout out because he was great to work with.
He absolutely was, ma'am, and I thank you for doing that. He worked right up to the last second. In fact, many of us had no idea that he was actually choosing to move on. So you would have never told because he has such a great work ethic. So thank you for actually giving him some credit there, ma'am. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about where it's a little different in your area, ma'am, are they physically moved me, the chief of Battalion 4, to what's called Station 18, which is Coors and Montano area. They moved me basically about 3 miles to the north. And that was to provide, in theory, a better coverage of myself to the entire west side, which is if you take the river and push west. So that's my responsibility. I think we're still trying to work some bugs of how I'm supposed to navigate the entire west side from this location. It is problematic. Really, the ideal setting is 2 of us out here. But right now, because of physical restraints, it's only 1. In that move, that also allowed a hazardous materials station to be moved to Station 17, which is Coors and Sequoia. And that's great for our public too, because now we have a hazardous materials response available for all of the west side, west of the river. That's never been done before. And that was a kudos to Chief Dow. That was, I believe, one of his marks that he wanted to leave behind. Also, what we did was we moved a wildland station to what's called Station 7, which is Coors and kind of 47th Street. And that allows a quicker response down into the Bosque, which just happened today again, with Bosque fires ramping up. There was another fire today, which Station 7 was quickly deployed. And that reflex time of having a short response time right into the Bosque was ideal, and it helped yet again. If you're curious, it was less than, I believe, a half an acre, but it took our resources about 4 hours to knock that down. And that takes a lot of time, and that strips those units from those neighboring companies. So it takes us a long time to put out an actual fire. With that also, we've had a lot of retirements, just as APD was saying that they've seen an increase. And I don't know if that's anecdotal for us too, but I see the memos and we have a lot of folks retiring, and kudos to them. However, you know, sometimes it's hard to predict those moves, and we've seen that. So we've anticipated that. And the move that we're making to fill those gaps are, it's my understanding that we were just given clearance to hire another 20 people from the last list of hiring applicants. So that'll be really good for our staffing levels because some of the troops are getting a little worn out. I did speak just a second ago of the outside fires ramping up. I was just looking at our stats. If Counselor, I know that you get this. I'm going to try and show it on the picture so everybody can see. This is a monthly report that gets sent out every month by our fire chief, and it literally tells everything that we do. And some of the things that on there, you may not even understand what we do, but our outside fires are absolutely increasing. Because of the 4th of July, because of the drought, because of the concern over wildland fires. I was just reading another memo that says that we're going to be upgrading the response and the amount of troops that are on duty July 1st through the 4th, up to and including another chief. So that means that we're heavily patrolling not only the Bosque, but having troops in place ready to go for wildland fires. And by wildland, I mean anything that's basically not a house or a structure. So it's all the grass, the trees, the environment around houses. Last but not least, you may have seen the news. There was a person arrested for Bosque fire. He was at least accused of that. I highly personally suspect there's more than one, as was evidenced by today. We had yet another fire. So I think a lot of us are very concerned about the Bosque because that's part of our community and we're trying desperately to protect it. I flew through a lot of things there so that I could take any questions from obviously the council or anybody else in the audience. Anybody have any questions for me?
I'm still going to call you chief, but I think it's really important because we're getting close to 4th of July. It's a really dry year. It's been a dry year, even though we've had some monsoon rainfalls recently, but we're still really low on the spectrum. So do you want to address that? I will tell you, I live over close to golf course, and the other night I heard fireworks going off, late into the night.
Let me make sure I'm understanding your question, ma'am, or that you wanted me to address, and that is the low precipitation.
Well, I'm really how it relates back to fireworks during this time, because people call our office on a regular basis asking us, how do we report this? How do we report that? So can you just give us some insight into that?
So it might take me a minute to really explain it. I'll try and give you a nutshell of this. A couple problems with this are that we have vendors on street corners that sell fireworks. We also have folks that travel outside of Albuquerque to purchase fireworks that are not legal within the city limits. So when those are coupled with bringing them into the city limits and then one person ignites something and it goes up, then you can have a couple different calls into the 911 center. That alone becomes a problem because now you have up to 3 calls, 4 calls, 5 calls for one event. So the way we strategized, we've tried different methods there. What we've done in the past is we've opened up more 911 operators to start fielding those phone calls. That is almost overwhelming, to be very honest with you. Didn't work, just too many calls coming in. So then what another attack plan that we've done is we've tried to identify areas of high use, and then we send our fire trucks into that area. Well, a problem with that early on became that we're not police officers, and people when they're lighting fireworks and partying, they're not very conducive to obeying us when we say, please don't do that. So another method that we use in the last few years is to ask for the help from the police officers. So we've paired police officers and fire marshal deputies up to actually patrol those areas as well as fire units. The simple fact of us driving through neighborhoods does typically calm the activity, but it doesn't totally eliminate it by any means. Last year, we experimented with an app where people could actually log in and show what's happening. I am not yet briefed on what the method is this year. Shame on me. I'm sure it's out there. I just have not seen that plan yet, whether it's going to be by app or encouraging folks to be calling 311. I apologize that I don't have that information.
I do. We did release some information, Susan, recently. She did release some information to our neighborhood contacts that dealt with, and I think it came from the chief of, where to call and kind of who to call and that sort of thing. Because as I understand, Battalion Chief, My understanding is that it's the only ones who can restrict the sales of fireworks in the state of New Mexico is the legislature. Is that correct?
Correct, ma'am.
Because people often call our office asking us to, stop fireworks sales in Bernalillo County or in the city limits. And that is not within the purview of the city council. It is within the purview of the state legislature to cease any sales. So, but if people are interested in that letter from Chief Gallegos, we are happy to send that forward.
I just scanned it. It looked like 311 is your main region.
Okay. So that's the number that's always available to our public. And if you don't know what 311 is, that's a great resource. Folks that are always interested in answering the phone and really there to navigate your concern to the appropriate resource.
And thank you. And thank you to all of our firefighters, along with our police officers, our bus drivers. During COVID, you guys were amazing. I mean, working right through it and not missing a blink. And, and we're glad that we're starting to come out of it and
yes, ma'am.
Opening up our economy again. And it's important. So would you like to just share in the chat any resources that for AFR, in case, of course, we know that where the stations are, but if you'd like to share any, if people wanted to contact fire, if you could just share that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Councilor, I'll send my personal, my email and my personal cell phone. I have no problem doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll share that in the chat. And thank you, Councilor, for sharing this and having an open forum for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we are going to move along on our agenda because we don't have a lot of time. We are going to move to the Emergency Operations Center. Nick, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Zubel, yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Borrego and staff. Appreciate the opportunity to give you an update on the city's Emergency Operations Center. As many of you know, we have coordinated the city's response to the COVID pandemic since March of last year. And primarily now we're in the continued phase of vaccination of our community. We've since December 31st, New Year's Eve, we have coordinated and managed 100 points of dispensing vaccination sites across the city. And these sites have primarily been public schools and as well as city facilities. We're continuing to work with our site providers, site owners, and providers to plan vaccination events at various locations. We have one this week at the Sunport, starting today actually through July 1st. We've had sites at Pinot Yards. We have one scheduled at Balloon Fiesta Park on July 4th, for the 4th of July, just before the fireworks. We've had sites at APS's Bonifacio Development Center. We're now in this phase of working with FEMA to have some sites at the community centers throughout the city, primarily to start Los Terranes, proposed for June 25th, Holiday Parks, proposed for today. We're still working out some of the final walkthrough layout. Taylor Ranch Community Center, there'll be a site there coming up soon, Mesa Verde and Cesar Chavez. And all of these sites offer the Moderna and J&J vaccine. We've also partnered with FEMA over the last two months to do mobile vaccination sites. And one of those sites, John Marshall Health, we did about 700 doses at that site. This week, we have a mobile vaccine clinic with FEMA at the Los Padillas Community Center that runs through the 26th of June. We proposed one for West Mesa, starting June 26th through July 3rd. And then, as I mentioned, Balloon Fiesta Park on July 4th. Again, these sites offer the J&J and the Moderna. Anyone 18 and older, masks are required, but no insurance, no IDs are required. You can just walk up and get a vaccine. As far as testing, primarily in the District 5, CVS Pharmacy is your best option for getting testing currently. Looking at our stats for the state, we have had about an average of 21 new cases in the county over per day. That's about 127 over the course of a week from last week. Last week we had about an average of 5 deaths from June 12th to June 17th. So that's a pretty low average. Those are good data. Good
So
numbers to
would
look
you
at.
say, Nick, that we're meeting, I guess it's called herd immunity or something like that, right? Is that where we are? Is that what
Well,
we're
we're definitely, I wouldn't say we're meeting the herd immunity, but we're meeting we've surpassed the state's goal of 60% fully vaccinated by July 1st. Our number right now, actually, for residents that are completely vaccinated within Bernalillo County is 63.9%. And then for at least one shot is 71.7%. At
Can
the
you
state level.
Can
Go
you
ahead.
share that list with us so we can send it out of where people can go if they haven't been vaccinated?
Sure.
Can you
those
share
sites.
that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, I can get those to you. And at the state level, across the state, 59.9%, that's where we are right now of fully vaccinated residents. So we're expected to meet that July 1st timeframe of 60%. So that's such a huge win for the state and the city.
Am I correct in thinking and watching the news that we are turquoise now or green or
Yes.
something?
We're turquoise. We will continue it into the turquoise phase after July 1st for all counties in the state of New Mexico.
So what does that mean for businesses in terms of turquoise?
It's 100% reopening of businesses, of the schools. I mean, that's what the governor order is now. At the city level, if anything were to change, should the mayor have any maybe more specific recommendations, that is still to be determined. But at this time, according to the state's turquoise phase, it's 100%.
And also, Nick, could you share your email on the chat?
Sure.
So that if people have further questions, they can contact either you or Roger or whoever. I came to find that not as many people know about the Emergency Operations Center as I thought. And it's a really important function because not only are you all in contact with the city, police and fire, but you're also in contact with the state emergency ops center. And so if there was ever, and the federal, if there was ever some sort of a serious emergency in the community, you all are the folks that people turn to coordinate.
Absolutely. And I'd like to thank all the city departments, AFR, APD, and others who have been involved in this coordination because the Emergency Operations Center is a coordination effort across all city departments, other partner agencies, the county, the state, and we as the Emergency Management Office, we just manage that piece to ensure that all those players are involved.
And one player that I didn't mention, a couple players that I didn't mention, the Corps of Engineers, Sandia, the bases and so on. So you guys are sort of you're really key to how we would deal with emergency preparedness in our community.
Absolutely. And we're looking forward to reopening so we can do more, training and exercise and workshops for the community.
And you're located on 118th and 120.
We're 11510 Sunset Gardens, which is right next to the Fire Academy.
Yeah, and that's about 118th Street. Is that right?
114th.
114th Street.
Off of Central there.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon, Nick.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to move on then, I guess, to our next.
Quick question, Zubel.
Yes.
So I've heard that like the museums and some of the venues that the city operates are waiting for capacity limits to be lifted before they can reopen. So what kind of, we have to meet the green, we have to be in the green?
The turquoise, yeah, we've met the turquoise.
But what are capacity limits currently, and how can we move past that restriction?
For city facilities?
Mhm.
I can get that information to you.
Okay,
Yeah, because like at the state level, there's the mass gathering requirement, when that could be a little different for city facilities.
Mhm.
I don't want to present a state number that may not be as applicable.
But they are still in place for restaurants.
Yes, yeah.
And okay, I've seen some signs on tables, but
Until that July 1st, yeah, reopening. Yeah.
oh, until July 1st.
That's,
And then
yeah,
July 1st.
it's supposed to fully reopen once we meet that 60% fully vaccinated, and we're at 59.9 right now.
Wow.
Yeah. As a state, but we passed that as a city, as a county, we're at 63.9.
And that doesn't include children under, what is it, 13?
No, it does not.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
you.
We'll wait to put your information up on the chat as well, in case people want to look at that. So with that, we are going to move into infrastructure issues that we have in District 5. And with us this evening, we have Melissa Lozoya. And I see her on the screen, but I don't see any photo of her. And Tim Brown, traffic, hey, Tim, good to see you.
Hi, Counselor. How are you?
Good to see you. Is
Hi,
Melissa
hi,
joining?
Counselor. Yes,
Hi.
Counselor, I'm here.
Okay, good.
Yes,
Good,
I'm here.
good. We're gonna turn it over to you all, and we're just gonna talk a little bit about some of the projects that I mentioned earlier. I hope you were listening. I talked a little bit about West Side Boulevard, sort of the status of that, kind of the status of Paseo del Norte, which is huge in our district, and Unser Boulevard. And I know McMahon is always an issue up there in the sort of, I guess, northwest quadrant of our city. So can you guys address some of those issues? And there's some other things, and just wanted to say, shout out for supporting our traffic study at Universe and Ventana Hills. We're going to be starting that fairly soon. So thank you, Tim. I know you did a lot of work in there, and we have a lot more work to do, but I'll turn it over to you all.
So, Counselor, actually, I spoke to Melissa and Tim before this meeting, and those bigger projects will address in the constituent questions, because constituents have specifically asked about Paseo and Unser. But we wanted to go into these smaller projects that you've so conscientiously started in District 5, and the DMD has asked that I review those as the representative of council, and since you actually funded these projects, and then they'll supply any details that I miss at the end of the discussion. Is that all right?
Yes, absolutely. Right. Thank you.
So to begin, the councilor started a project on Irving Boulevard, and this one's just gotten underway. It's the Irving Boulevard Calming and Multimodal Improvement Study. I'm going to have it up on the screen here. So it runs from Rio Los Pinos Drive to La Paz Northwest or Pyrenees. There's been consistent reports of speeding through this corridor, and actually houses back up right along this section of Irving. Residents continue to advocate for traffic calming and multimodal improvements in the area. At one point, the county and the city had proposed widening that area of Irving and advancing its road classification, and that was strongly rejected by the residents. And so what's come about is moratoriums on Irving to cease and desist all thoughts of expanding the road, because these people actually live right along Irving, and to expand the road would have caused to take away part of their driveways. So it was invasive to the neighbors in this area. And so through the moratoriums over the last 3 cycles, including one from the previous administration, at this point, the Councilor Borrego has decided to instigate a study for traffic calming in the area, and to find out what we can do to permanently change traffic patterns on Irving from Los Pinos to La Paz. So there's a potential for road diets. It's classified an urban collector, though that will be really irrelevant once these traffic calming improvements are in place.
So basically what Susan's saying is we're initiating a traffic study for that area that will recommend improvements to the area, traffic calming improvements. And that could include a number of different things from, a median, a traffic circle, bike paths, some new sidewalk improvements. So we'll see what the traffic study, what comes out of that. We have a number of traffic studies actually that have been initiated. I have another traffic study on Golf Course, which is about $100,000, and that goes from Rio Rancho to Montano. And we just initiated that we just hired the consultant for that. And I think is that Bohannon Houston, right? Tim?
Right.
Or
It
Susan?
is Bohannon Houston. And I have a brief on that project if you'd like me to go into.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time because we are going to be initiating
Sorry, I was on.
community meetings. So, and we still have to address constituent questions. So
Right.
I think
So that was essentially what you said is essentially what the golf course study is, except that it also includes character enhancements for golf course. And that would be things to make it more of a centerpiece for District 5, so that it can be celebrated. I mean, eventually we might have parades down golf course, on special occasions, but there will be, it really needs better bicycle and sidewalk improvements from the deficiencies that are currently there.
So we
And
have a
this-
number of traffic studies going on in District 5 that I've initiated, and
And I'll
I
go over
think-
those now.
yeah, do you want to just read them? Because it's already 20 minutes to 7, so.
Right. So the other one is Butterfield, Rancho Sereno, Rancho Milagro, Las Teresas, and Rancho Colorado. So this little network of roads is surrounding a neighborhood, but they are the only access points to the neighborhood, and people cannot walk out of their resident area to get to like Mariposa Park, and because of the speeding and the lack of bicycle lanes. So we're looking at trying to study that area, that it can't have speed bumps, because that is the only access to this network of neighborhoods. But there should be ways that they can cross the road safely and feel comfortable, just being pedestrians and bicyclists. The other study that's pretty important is the Universe from Irving to Ventana Hills Road. And the councilor just passed a piece of legislation. This is R161 on Universe. And that legislation that passed on Monday says that improvements on Universe, once this study is completed, will be a priority of the city. So that did pass, and its purpose is, so there's a lot of safety concerns on Universe. There's constant speeding, and there have been very serious accidents, sadly. So we'd like to really look at maybe roundabouts or just how to do traffic calming on Universe, because it's an important corridor, just like golf course. Another study, so that's initiated. we're going to get the funding for the study.
And what's important with that one is that the city council voted last night to include that as a priority. So that will kind of move to the top of the list. We have had a number of accidents in that area and unfortunate incidents. So we definitely were listening to the community, and that really kind of raises its priority level.
And that one's number is R21161. If anyone wants to look it up on Legistar or contact Councilor Raya, and we'll send it to you.
Okay, so Susan, is
I have
that,
a few more studies to cover. So the next one, let's see here, is we did go over Irving, so that one's over. And actually, the Rainbow Boulevard Traffic Calming and Pedestrian Study. So this is right by Tierra Antigua Elementary, Tony Hillerman Middle School, and Via Vista High School. And the issue is that during the school year, during a normal school year, students are running across the road erratically. There is a crossing area, but I guess it's easier to cross in different places. So this is really a pedestrian safety study, because we need to determine ways to make their crossing safer, to discourage the jaywalking, and just get them to school in a safe way. So this whole area, we need to calm traffic especially during drop-off and pickup times, and then maybe add some median improvements for students that are crossing. This has been a pretty constant and pressing situation that people say, oh, well, it meets the standard engineering criteria, but with the students not adhering to the designated crossings, it becomes dangerous. So that's also been initiated. So those are the ones I think there are the 5 new traffic studies. And after we have the results, then the councilor will begin looking for funding to improve these areas. So Manager.
and before we do that, we'll probably have community meetings to present each one of those, the
Absolutely.
results of each one of them, because I have placed some of my set aside for these particular studies. And as you all know, the way that things get done at the city is you study it, and then you pick the best alternatives, and then you design it and you construct it. So those are really important steps. And I see Tim over there kind of looking like, yeah, I think you're right, Counselor. I think that those are the right steps, right, Tim? Did I get that right?
Yeah, exactly. So
So
Do you have something to add, Ms. Manager Brown or Deputy Director Lazoya, to this?
no, I think you did a good job covering the projects that the counselor wanted us to
one more.
to help you with. Oh, go ahead, Counselor.
One more I just, you didn't have on your list, Susan, is Rancho Sereno. We're looking at initiating a study there. We'll be having some community meetings regarding that entire neighborhood because of the speeding that's happening on those particular little roadways in there.
I think I did. That was the Butterfield Las Torresas neighborhood where the
Oh,
people
okay.
tend to walk. But
Okay,
it has
I didn't
5 roads.
recognize it by the name that you called it. So, yeah.
Interesting.
That's an important one. So I'm going to let Tim and Melissa talk briefly about Paseo and Unser, because I think it's important. And Susan, you can address it a little bit later in the constituent comments. But if one of you can just chime in on kind of where things are on those two, and then also West Side Boulevard.
Well, Counselor, as you're aware, West Side Boulevard is under construction at this time and moving along pretty smoothly. I know we've had some constituents in the area express some concerns about the construction. We do have a public information officer, Patty Watson, on that project who will be able to address those concerns. And her contact information was provided to Susan, And obviously we can make that readily available to anyone who would like to reach out to her to get more information on West Side. As for Unser and Paseo, Unser is under contract and just beginning the early design phases for that project. And Paseo, it has been under design for about 6 months now. We're in the DAR stage, which is the design analysis report phase, which isn't quite designed, but we're looking at pretty much what the options are to make that corridor as soon as those results
Melissa, you're fading in
come
and out
out,
just a
I
bit.
believe
Melissa, you're fading in and out just a bit.
the design analysis report, or should be receiving that shortly. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were fading out there at the end, so I don't think we caught what you said.
Okay, did you hear what I said about Paseo?
We heard part of it, but we heard about the design that you're working on, the DAR.
Yes, so we should be receiving that information within the next few weeks. We'll review that internally, provide comments back to the consultant, your office, and then ultimately the public will start our public involvement process.
Okay, great. So any other comments, Tim, that you want to chime in on?
No, I don't think so at this time. We can, I can wait for questions from the audience.
Okay, I'm going to have to get on to a 7 o'clock meeting. So what I'm going to do, because I have to do that, is I'm going to turn the meeting over to Susan, and she's going to go through the constituent comments. And I'm just going to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We did receive about seven questions, comments, and she's just going to go through those. She and I discussed those this afternoon, but I want her to address them individually. And then I also would like for her to email those constituents with our responses. And I just want to thank the public for being here. I'm going to have to leave at this point, only because I have to be on another at another meeting at 7 o'clock, and I've got about 10 minutes to get there. So thank you all for being with us, and I'm going to have to sign out at this point in time.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
So, hi, everyone. I just need a drink of water. Then we'll go through your very thoughtful constituent comments. One moment. So I did want to say that the West Side Boulevard contact is on your newsletter. If you look on your newsletters, that name is included. And if anyone wants or needs that name, I can also email it to you. I can possibly get it up on the chat here in between the other things I'm doing. So, constituent comments. All right, so we received a comment from, I'm not going to name names actually, but this person is asking about sworn officers as of today's date and the manning that each department is able to provide. And I did ask Commander Sanchez and Mr. Gelabart to address this issue. I know that we funded about 1,000 new officers in the last budget cycle, but Mr. Gelabart or Commander Sanchez, can you address this?
Yes, we currently have about 967 sworn officers. The West Side Area Command has, currently we have 47 officers for the Northwest. But and you're right, there is funding, I understand, for 1,000 officers. We're just still working in the recruiting process to try to get more into the academy.
So there are about 47 in the Northwest area.
Yes,
Command?
there are currently about 47 officers. Actually, it's 47 officers that are in the Northwest Area Command. So.
Are there more detectives and other types of?
Well,
officials?
no, the way that the officers, when they bid, prior to the bid, each area command, depending on the calls for service, depending on the number of officers that are going to be allowed to bid into the field services, they're each area command is allotted a certain number of officers. So we were, I believe that there was about 60 that had bid into the Northwest Area Command, but just with the attrition and transfers and things. So it's where we're at. And usually it's typical that towards the end of every bid, and it's like that pretty much every year. Once you get closer to a new bid, which is typically around July or August, you see a smaller number of officers within those area commands because of some of those retirements that come up.
Interesting. Well, I hope we have some good classes to be grateful for this next cycle. Thank you, Commander. So then I have another question about improvements to District 5 recreational facilities, and that this individual hasn't seen the changes that she would like to see. So first of all, the counselor did mention that in 2019, she funded a new pool, actually repairs to the existing slide at Sierra Vista Pool, and that was in the amount of $70,669. Right when the slide was installed, we had COVID, so we never. This is the first couple weeks that people had a chance to use it, and I hope they're having tons of fun using the new slide. So that's one improvement. The counselor is also looking to add lighting at Sierra Vista and received an amount of funding for that. I want to say it's $150,000. So Sierra Vista also has tennis courts, and with that $150,000, the lighting will permit players 24-hour access, but extended hours, especially during the fall and winter. And also we're looking to restripe some of those courts for pickleball. So those two improvements are in line to happen. There's also some park playground equipment that the counselor is working on. As far as the Cibola Loop Multi-Generational Center and Complex, right now, there's $593 put towards $593,000 for the design documents, and that will be for the first stage of the multi-generational center itself. So there are two, what we're calling stages. There actually could be considered floors to the generational center. So with the design for the first floor or stage, we can start putting all of the other funding to actually constructing the generational center. There is a property that's needed for hydrology features, and the counselor is requesting that from the federal government. There has been positive response to that request. It's still pending. So that, I think that's about 2.3 million plus with the hydrology construction, and hopefully the federal government will recognize the need. So otherwise, there is 6 million on the voter bond in November that, if it's approved, that can go towards construction of the generational center's first floor, which is actually at an estimated cost of 14 million. However, that 6 would be a good step to start laying the foundation. And so that's exciting that's happening so quickly. There's also low density multifamily housing for seniors that is half HUD funding, which is the federal program for low income housing. But this is specifically for seniors, and the RFP has been issued, and by 2022, the construction should be in place for that, if all goes well with the RFP, which it seems it's had, again, favorable response. So let's see, the state legislature in 2021 gave $500,000 for the Cibola Loop Community Complex. So we have to thank our state legislators for their support. Let's see. I think that's about it with Cibola Loop. So that's what we're looking at. We want this to be built and an amenity for the people in District 5 as soon as possible, just like everyone else does, because there is a really great need for some cultural and social assets in District 5 beyond just Cottonwood Mall, which is commercial, but, something to bring people together where we can talk and play together. So Cibola Loop Multi-Generational Center. The next question is plans for Universe and Paseo. So there actually are plans for Universe and Paseo for specific developments there. One is housing and one is for commercial. But beyond that, it's encompassed in the Paseo del Norte expansion project. And I believe Melissa Lozoya, Deputy Director Lozoya, addressed this. Right now, the team is studying the existing roadway conditions, traffic patterns, development plans, and growth projections for the area to establish the project's baseline needs. Design concepts for widening options addressing these needs are under development. So this is moving into the design analysis report. And from that design analysis report, several recommendations will be ranked and one will be chosen. Utility expansions are also being carefully reviewed. The Councilor Borrego, sponsored the Volcano Heights infrastructure study so that we have a scope of how much and what is needed for infrastructure improvements in the area to feed into developments, residential developments or commercial developments on either side of the street. So it is on her website if anyone chooses to look, but it's also being updated for water considerations and drainage. So the next question is the city should take a look at getting back to its beautiful standards. And Paseo is trashed sometimes. So every time that Paseo has trash on it, the council drives, up and down Paseo often, and I usually take Alameda, but sometimes I'll see trash on Alameda. We call our state highway District 3 engineer, and that's the agency responsible for cleaning those streets. And I encourage you to also call them, but if you wish, you can contact Council President Borrego's office and we will contact them to clean those streets up, because they will go out and sweep them up. I think a lot of it is blowing out of people's cars or out of their trucks. It's not just like some, derelict person throwing a cup out of their car. It's mostly blowing out of trucks, but yeah, it's the wind and people aren't securing their hatches. So not their hatch, but their loads. So also Council President Borrego in 2018 passed and sponsored 01818, which is increased the fines for littering to $250 for the first offense, $350 for the second offense, and $500 thereafter. And the city is working, not just the Councilor Borrego, but all across the city to gather funds for median beautification. But the council has been successful in, I think Paradise Boulevard has been recently landscaped. There's a section on Homestead and Taylor Ranch, and then now Irving is going to be landscaped. So that's exciting. Next, we'll look at these bigger street sections on Unser and on Montano. So I think that really improves the look of neighborhoods. They're just pricey, and I would encourage you all to contact your state legislators to, if you are in favor of that beautification on streets. So my next question is, when will the traffic signal at Kimmick and Paseo be open? So maybe you can address this, Director Lozoya. I have an answer if you want me to say it, because we've had this question often.
I can answer that for you, Susan. So we have evaluated the Kimmick and Paseo traffic signal. At this time, it does not warrant turning it on, although I expect it would be turned on as part of the Paseo expansion. Now, anyone who has been in that area of District 5 knows that there is a lot of construction occurring along Kimmick, both north and south of Kimmick, and then along Rosa Parks. Those neighborhoods are building homes furiously. And so it's definitely on our list to monitor. We'll be going out on a regular basis to make sure that, once traffic is heavy enough, we'll turn on the signal. But at this time, it does not warrant the turn on.
All right. Yeah. So as soon as some more development comes into the area, then it will be used. It will be more useful. And the counselor is working with residents on Kimmick, between Kimmick and Paseo del Norte, and with Manager Brown of the Traffic Engineering Department to make Kimmick workable during the construction of Paseo del Norte, which is imminent, and just keep Kimmick a neighborhood level friendly street. So that's underway also. You might see some bicycle lanes pop up there. Yeah, but right now that, those developments really will trigger that light.
And I'll just add on as well, Susan, we're still looking at the intersection of Kimmick and Uraka to see if that needs any changes to how that works. But Red Route and Kimmick recently had an always stop installed. Councilor Borrego and the neighborhood there asked traffic engineering to look at it, and we evaluated it. And based on the design of the intersection, we felt like the always stop was the appropriate treatment there. And as Susan mentioned, we have reached out to a contractor for a quote for adding some additional bike lanes. We believe that narrowing the driving space for the motor vehicles will help people drive on Kimmick a little bit more slowly than they are today.
Thank you, Manager Brown. Yeah, and that stop sign is really needed, and it will make makes the area slow down, which I would encourage everyone just go a little slower. It's beautiful out these days, and enjoy the vistas. So it keeps us more, sane and calm and safe. So then the next the next question is about cannabis dealers, cannabis retail. And this, of course, was in the special session on June 17th. This person is questioning why cannabis retail will be allowed on Central Avenue. So this Councilor Jones, at the request of the administration, proposed that cannabis retail be prohibited on Main Street corridors. And Main Street corridors are, there are a few. I think there's one on San Pedro that designated Main Street corridors, Central, and then, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone here knows. And then the other one would be close to Old Town and in Old Town. So that comes from studies in other places that have legalized cannabis, that, you know, people are concerned that by having it on the main corridors, it changes the character of the main corridors. And then it makes it so much more visible. So this bill did not pass. And so it is allowed on those Main Street corridors on Central. What did pass, however, is R21-165, and this passed at the regular council meeting on June 21st. And that actually put a moratorium on cannabis retail in Old Town, because the councilors felt like even though all of the Main Street corridors weren't to be prohibited from retail, Old Town is perhaps a special. It has a special character, and that should be protected. And so this R21-165, sponsored by Councilor Benton, passed City Council, and there will be prohibitions and certain ways of prohibiting that retail of cannabis in Old Town. So don't stop going to Old Town. We're working on it, the councilors, and they're sure to come up with some unique and creative solutions. Let's see. Otherwise, I do have some pretty detailed questions on Paseo del Norte, and I'm not going to go, and the drainage on Paseo del Norte. I'm not going to go into this question in detail at this forum. I will address the detailed question on Paseo del Norte personally to the person that requested that information. So that's all I have, but I really enjoy getting your comments and questions. I think that there's things that we're working on and we're not sure that people are noticing all of these, all the thought that goes behind it. So thank you for writing in. And I guess we're going a little bit late, so I should wrap this all up. If everyone wants to say goodbye, we can say goodbye all together. It's good to chat with you virtually, and our next meeting will be in person. So yay! Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.